Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at what I believe to be the strongest RHYPERIOR team in the Open Master League. I played with this team today, and I was able to climb up to 2987 ELO on the doorstep of Legend, and I reached number 184 in the world. The team consists of a Rayquaza lead, Xerneas as the safe switch, and RHYPERIOR as the closer running Mud Slap. So it's a bit of an ABC style balanced team, but I've had quite a lot of success with it. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out the RHYPERIOR team in action in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, and we have a mirror lead Rayquaza versus Rayquaza. Typically, I'll throw 4 Dragon Tails and try and catch a Breaking Swipe onto Xerneas. Unfortunately, my opponent had the exact same plan, but they were looking to catch on their Solgaleo. This is a really unfortunate turn of events for me, as Xerneas does not do well into Solgaleo whatsoever. They go for the Iron Head, that hits for massive super effective damage, and I'm going to begin to launch these close combats. Close combat is going to connect into the Solgaleo. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to double up on close combats before they're able to get the farm down, so instead, I'm just forced to go for the close combat right before they're able to get the KO. I send in RHYPERIOR. Opponent went for a blind Psychic Fangs. That's quite nice for me. And now I get the Mud Slap farm down here. Opponent is going to send back in Rayquaza. Rayquaza firing off the Breaking Swipe, but this is fine. RHYPERIOR has pretty nice bulk. It is slightly bulkier than Dialga. Dialga, of course, does have a much higher attack stat, but RHYPERIOR does have some nice bulk to it. Breaking Swipe gets the shield. We got the combo play into our own Rayquaza, putting pressure on the final shield, and the opponent is going to give up the final shield. I'm going to commit the shield here. They're going to have to switch at some point. What do they have in the back? They have Heatran, and this is not good. I try and go for the CMP tie, but my opponent is playing this very well. They know that they have to try and commit to a farm down here, but by doing so, I'm going to make it to multiple Breaking Swipes, and their energy is completely walled by RHYPERIOR. Granted, RHYPERIOR is very low health here, so the question is, can RHYPERIOR tank a move? They go for the Stone Edge. RHYPERIOR able to tank. RHYPERIOR gets the Mud Slap down, and on 1 HP leaves with the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe knocks Rayquaza out of the sky, and that's a good game. We see a great lead in the next match, Rayquaza into Ho-Oh. This team is ABA strong to Ho-Oh, with both Rayquaza and the RHYPERIOR having dominant matchups. They save switch into Lugia, and this is the perfect opportunity for me to basically get rid of my Xerneas. Xerneas is the only Pokemon on this team that Ho-Oh has any play against, so if I can just get rid of the Xerneas, switch advantage doesn't matter to me, because Ho-Oh will only have bad matchups left. They go for the Aeroblast, that's fine. They can't farm down, Dragon Tail is double resisted, so I'm going to farm up, go for the Moonblast on the CMP tie. This will not KO, but I don't need switch advantage here. I'm just going to let the Xerneas go. Xerneas has done its job, and now I can go for a pretty ridiculous double resisted Mud Slap farm down with the RHYPERIOR. RHYPERIOR, these Mud Slaps doing absolutely nothing but gets the farm down, and now the Ho-Oh has nowhere to run. My Pokemon have energy everywhere, and Ho-Oh only has bad matchups remaining. In the back, my opponent has Rayquaza. They're going to shield up a Breaking Swipe, as I did have enough for a Rock Wrecker there. I'm going to let this through, and then I'm going to switch out. I'm going to switch into my own Rayquaza, reset the debuff on the RHYPERIOR, and put pressure on that final shield, just making things very difficult for my opponent here. They're going to commit the final shield, and you know what? Honestly, I'm just going to let RHYPERIOR finish this game. I just have to watch for a catch, basically, and this game is done. I send in RHYPERIOR, wait a turn to watch for the catch. In comes the Ho-Oh, and I can massively overfarm here. Rock Wrecker, double super effective damage, one-shots the Ho-Oh, and we leave with the Breaking Swipe loaded. Again, RHYPERIOR is just such a beast in the Master League, and we take that game. We've got a bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Rayquaza into Landorus. This is a matchup where unfortunately I do have to throw the Breaking Swipe on alignment. If I try and throw on good timing, they're able to outpace, and without a debuff, a Stone Edge is going to be one-shotting. Whereas now that I've lowered their attack, I can actually tank a Stone Edge here. So I can tank the Stone Edge, my opponent save switches into Dialga. Unfortunately, they do get the 0-turn switch. If they get the 1-turn switch, as the RHYPERIOR, after throwing 1 Dragon Tail with Rayquaza, you can 1-shield farm down, but unfortunately they get the 0-turn switch here, which means I'm going to have to throw energy. So I will throw the Breaking Swipe at the last second. This was a bit of a misplay by me. I should have thrown 1 Mud Slap sooner, since I threw right before they made the move, they can then win CMP. But at this point, I'm just going to send in Xerneas. If they're leading Landorus, it's unlikely they have a Ho-Oh in the back, as then they would just lose to any Kyogre lead automatically. So energy on Xerneas should probably suit me well. And in the back, they have their own fairy type. They have Zacian, and I should be in a really good spot here. My Rayquaza is extremely low, but it still should be useful to get some very nice fast move pressure onto the low health Landorus. They commit the shield with the Zacian. Zacian will fire off the Play Rough. I continue to farm with the Xerneas, and I'm making it to the Moonblast. This will not KO, but it will put them into close combat range, which is perfect as close combat is slightly cheaper. I continue to farm with the Xerneas, and I make the close combat. This will be lethal, but it will of course debuff me. So I'm now going to switch into Rayquaza. Rayquaza able to hang on with a sliver of HP, make the Breaking Swipe, and Breaking Swipe into the Landorus will secure the victory. We move into the next match, but we actually see the same leads, Rayquaza into Landorus, so I plan to play it the same way, but my opponent has other ideas. They save switch into Mewtwo. Mewtwo is going to be able to outpace, and this is a move that I always shield as the Rayquaza. Rayquaza wins the 1s and the 2s versus Mewtwo, but loses the 0s, so it's well worth it if you're the Rayquaza to shield the first move. My opponent knows that they only win the 0s, so they're not going to shield. I'm going to farm up, switch into Xerneas, and Xerneas will be able to take this debuff Side Strike a lot better than that Rayquaza. I'm able to tank that. Xerneas able to get the Geomancy farm down as Mewtwo dies with the Side Strike. In comes the Landorus. I'm over farming and firing off the Moonblast. This will not KO, but it does massive damage into the Landorus. Landorus will commit the shield. I continue to farm with the Xerneas, a perfect overfarm by my opponent, as they will go for the Stone Edge before I'm able to make it to my next Moonblast. But now I can just send back in Rayquaza after I wait the timer here, as Rayquaza can still do quite well into the Landorus. Landorus will be met with the Breaking Swipe. Again, getting this debuff is very important as the Rayquaza. I continue to farm with the Rayquaza. They do have the Stone Edge here. This is a bit of a tough call to make. I decide to commit the shield. What do they have in back? They have Dialga. I'm going to fire off the Breaking Swipe here. I don't have a shield, so I need to debuff their attack. And now I can send in RHYPERIOR. RHYPERIOR continuing to farm. They're going for the super effective Iron Head, but Iron Head does not do a lot of damage after it's been debuffed. RHYPERIOR is going to get the full Mud Slap farm down and bring back in that Landorus. Landorus needs a Mud Shot farm down to win, but RHYPERIOR is too tanky. RHYPERIOR gets the shield with the first Breaking Swipe, and Breaking Swipe number 2 will deliver win number 4 of the set to RHYPERIOR. Game number 5 of the set, and we're met with a terrible lead, leading Rayquaza into Zacian. I'm immediately going to save switch into Xerneas here, and my opponent is staying in with the Zacian. I continue to farm with the Xerneas. They're not throwing any energy, so I will end up firing off the Moonblast. Moonblast connects. That does quite a lot of damage. I can tank any one move here, so I am going to let this through. Opponent goes for the Wild Charge, so they are a double nuke Zacian. I do want to try and make a play for switch if I can, so I will commit the shield as the Xerneas. I'm farming up with the Xerneas, and now I can go for the close combat. They're low enough and heavily debuffed, so close combat will easily get the KO. They commit the shield, and they make a crucial mistake. They throw on alignment, and this is going to allow me to Geomancy down if they stay in. We can see in real time the poor timing is punished, as now I exit this matchup with double close combats, and in the back they have Dialga. Oh my goodness. Dialga shields close combat number 1. No shields remaining for close combat number 2. Close combat will deal massive damage to the Dialga. Dialga gets the farm down. In comes RHYPERIOR in the back. Opponent has Zarude, and I'm sending in Rayquaza. Rayquaza farming up and just going for the Breaking Swipe right away. If I can lower their damage output here, I'm going to be able to tank 2 Dark Pulses, and then this game is basically just over. They can go for the Dark Pulse, but look at this. It's just not going to cut it. The Vine Whips are double resisted, and the opponent concedes the match. I get to claim the 5-0. That takes me to 29.87. Unfortunately, at this point, I basically ran out of queues, so I ended up queuing into Ultra League. Lost a few games, so now these games are still in the 2900s, but unfortunately a bit lower than 29.87. We pick up a pretty okay lead here, leading Rayquaza into Reshiram. Opponent makes a beautiful catch, catching the Breaking Swipe onto Solgaleo. I'm going for a second Breaking Swipe here. Iron Head, of course, does hit for super effective damage, but this Solgaleo is now 2 stages debuffed. They're not going to make it to 2 Iron Head, so it's very likely that my opponent will go for a Psychic Fangs into an Iron Head. So that way, at the very least, it's like they're only debuffed by 1 instead of 2, since they lowered my defense with the Psychic Fangs. Iron Head is going to connect. they're going to send in their final Pokemon, which is Mewtwo. I built up to the Rock Wrecker, baiting with the Breaking Swipe, and the Breaking Swipe bait does get the shield from the Mewtwo. I'm farming up to another Breaking Swipe, but Mewtwo will not let that happen as they're going to commit the shield. Psystrike is going to connect. In comes the Reshiram, and I respond with Xerneas. Xerneas will be able to tank the neutral Fusion Flare here. So as long as I just save my shields for Psystrikes from Mewtwo, I just win this game. So I can just go for the Moonblast. They only have one shield left. They kind of have to save it for the Mewtwo, but as soon as the Reshiram is KO'd, they no longer have a win con, and the opponent resigns the match. We see more dragons on the lead in the next match, Rayquaza into Zekrom. I'm always going to stay in this matchup and go for the Breaking Swipe. However, in this match, I don't play it correctly. After this Breaking Swipe is shielded, I should just save switch into the Xerneas. I'm running a 14 HP Rayquaza, which means instead of being able to make the Breaking Swipe on 1 HP there, I get KO'd. I'm going to send in my Rhyperior. They pivot into Groudon, and I'm going to send in the Xerneas, and things are looking absolutely awful here. If I had not stayed in with the Rayquaza, I could have save switched into the Xerneas, and then I could have potentially been in a slightly better situation, whereas now things are looking kind of dire. I'm able to land the Moonblast, but this is going to be the Precipice Blades. They already baited once. They're unlikely to bait twice, so I will end up committing the shield. I farm up. There I end up throwing on alignment. I just want to get rid of this thing, but that's of course going to be much too easy as they will commit the shield. Perfect overfarm there by my opponent. Precipice Blades should be lethal from this health range, and now I just have to trust in Rhyperior to win this game. I gotta hope it's something weak to Rhyperior in the back. They have a bunch of energy on the Zekrom, and it's a Ho-Oh in the back. They go for the catch onto Zekrom. They do not get it, and the opponent concedes the match. Rayquaza is met with a terrible lead in the next match as it leads into Xerneas. Xerneas leads are very tough for this team as I'm forced to save switch into my own Xerneas, and since switch takes a turn, as long as they throw the Moonblast as soon as they get theirs, I'm always going to be one Geomancy behind. I wait a turn, make sure I see their Geomancy start, and I go for the Moonblast. Moonblast will be no-shielded. They make the Moonblast when I make the close combat, so I will force the CMP tie. Unfortunately, I do lose the coin flip. I decide to commit the shield though. Typically, with Xerneas leads, if you can make a play for switch, it's preferable. I'm firing off the close combat. They're going to commit the shield. This is going to come down to another coin flip CMP tie, and this one I actually win. That's kind of nice. Okay, we will 100% take that. And they let it go. I win switch. It's a Giratina in the back, and now I can send in Rayquaza. But unfortunately, I'm about to make the first of 2 game-losing mistakes. I shouldn't really shield this. I should just trust in Rhyperior. If they had a Kyogre, they would have brought it in to the Xerneas save switch. They send in Dialga, and I'm going to fire off the Breaking Swipe. That's fine. I can now send in Rhyperior, and I should just go for the Breaking Swipe as soon as I get it. But for some reason, I overfarm, and I play to the CMP tie. Disaster striking in this game. And now, I'm not going to be able to win. I can make it to a Breaking Swipe versus the Giratina, but I'm not going to make it to 2. They're going to get to farm me down and make it to double Shadow Ball, which is going to KO the Rayquaza. So this was a game, despite a terrible lead, where I definitely had win conditions. Unfortunately, I make 2 misplays, and that's the game. I just do not win. They're at Shadow Ball number 1, and they are 2 Shadow Claws away from Shadow Ball number 2. So we fought hard against a really tough lead, but unfortunately, even after winning switch, misplays, they pop up, and we lose the game. Hopping into the final match, and we see a very great lead as I lead into another Ho-Oh. Opponent save switches into Dialga, so I throw 1 Dragon Tail and bring in Rhyperior. Now Dialga, save switching like that from a lead matchup does get the 1-turn switch. Now why that matters is if they get the 1-turn switch, Rhyperior can 1-shield, fully farm down, they die with the Iron Head every single time, and then Rhyperior with this much energy is a threat to literally anything in the meta. They can't afford to send in the Ho-Oh, so they send in Rayquaza, and Rayquaza's about to get buried under Breaking Swipe after Breaking Swipe after Breaking Swipe. I'm firing off Breaking Swipe number 2 here. We see the double shield from the Rayquaza. Opponent catches onto the Ho-Oh, but that's still just not going to save them, as now I can send in my Rayquaza. I'm able to make it to another Breaking Swipe, and this game, unfortunately, the opponent's 2 flyers are just getting absolutely destroyed by Breaking Swipe after Breaking Swipe after Breaking Swipe. They go for the Brave Bird. We can easily tank that due to the double debuff. We get the farm down, and the opponent concedes the match. All in all, I think this is an incredibly strong team if you're looking to make some elo gains during this week of Master League. I'm hoping that I will be able to finish the fight and hit Legend with it this Go Battle weekend. Currently, at day's end, I believe I ended at 2942, so peaked as high as 2987. As I mentioned, kind of ran out of queues in the Master League, so switched to the other leagues, didn't go as well as I was hoping, was able to salvage some elo in Masters, so 2942 definitely still in striking distance for Legend, and hopefully Legend is coming soon, but for now, ranked number 184 in the world, I will definitely take that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.